Hello, I'm back again, your man Ichibu, the Outbucks, and I'd like to just go straight to, to the point, without beating around the bush. I've lived in Namibia going to, I would say, 5 years now. Not yet 5 years, but I'm heading there very quickly, just a matter of months. And during this period, I've taken my time to observe, watch, listen, and feel the land situation in the country. What people say, what people write, what people don't say, and what people do not write. And I realized there are some things that are very unclear even to the Namibian. And so today I want to talk about the 5 hoaxes that every Namibian should get busted. 5 of them. I think sometime in some years back, I wrote an article in the Namibian. The Namibian is a newspaper, national newspaper in Namibia, where I tried to bust these 5 hoaxes. Hoax. I'm not sure, is that the correct way to pronounce it? I'm just saying, English is not my mother tongue and English is not my language. My language is Igbo and Uturu, and to an extent, in fact, Pidgin. So, having said that, I think it's hoax. A hoax in itself is a falsehood that is consciously or unconsciously projected to people or fabricated either to hide the truth or to an extent that it covers the truth. And so people begin to believe it. And an example of hoaxes that you would know is that black people are aggressive. And then amongst the black people, Africans are aggressive. And then amongst Africans, the West are aggressive. And then amongst the West, Nigerians are aggressive. And amongst Nigerians, I'll leave it there. Let's not begin to deconstruct this but there's this whole thing that even within our families there are stereotypes and there are hoaxes, if you like. They are not really true, but they are impressions that everyone tends to believe. It's just an example. When it comes to land, there are also hoaxes that are there that people begin to believe it and they do not really, it does not allow them to see the truth. For instance, an currently evolving hoax in Namibia. I haven't started with my 5 hoaxes. But just to give you an example of one emerging hoax in Namibia is that housing is so bad in Namibia and Namibians would like to live in apartment houses. It's a hoax. The last time I checked, the average Namibian, and when I say average, I'm not talking about the university professor, university lecturer. The Namibian who comes from the village, grew in the village, and who wants to, survive using land, they don't like those apartment buildings. In fact, They love any place you give them to live without some space for them to walk on, for their kids to play on. I'm talking about space, I'm talking about land, natural space that has land as its foundation. If they don't have it, they do not consider it as house or housing. Because averagely too, a Namibian, including myself, because I share that sentiment, if there is no land attached to it, it's a box, it's not a house. And so that's why in the informal settlements, when you go there, you ask our people to leave, they still want to stay there, because for them, first and foremost of most importance is the land before the structure or box of shack or box of corrugated iron sheet or box of plastic or box of whatever you choose, mud. Just saying, you don't get the mud in Namibia for informal settlements. You get them in the forms of, predominantly in the forms of corrugated iron sheets and plastic casings. Our people, even though it doesn't look good, prefer to stay in those places because it gives them access to land, whether it is legitimate access or illegitimate access, formal or informal access. Is formal, we call it informal settlement. That is why our people love to take on those places. They don't love to live there. They want those places upgraded, but they want it upgraded so far they can stay, use, and occupy the land. So it's a hoax for anyone to think that Namibians want to live in apartment houses where you shoot something vertically up there and you cut them in sections and people live there. I live in a place like that, many live there, but that is not the average, what the average Namibian wants. Historically, land is an issue in Namibia, and the Namibian has been denied access to land starting from when the Europeans came in here, occupied the place, and throughout the period of colonization. And so historically, they look at restitution to mean getting access to land in a period where it is believed that they are independent and have freedom. And so for them, housing freedom in itself is defined house that is directly or allows them to own a piece of land. So that's a hoax that have just busted. Land means everything, even when you talk about house, not apartments. I don't want you to mistake it. I'm not here making an argument on what is best, whether it is land or apartment and all that. No, I'm just trying to let you know that having lived in this country, experienced Namibia, observed Namibia, talked Namibia, I can tell you this is what it is. But when I read literature, there's always that thing of recommendations for apartments and all that. You see more of that than the other. Call it a story-like icebreaker, but it is real. Before I move into the land hoaxes. So to explain the hoaxes that I've been able to pick on in Namibia, hoax number one is that Namibia is a small country. Who the hell is saying that? I don't live in a small country. That Namibia is a small country. No. In fact, it would interest you to know that this country is about 824,000 square kilometers. Only 100,000 square kilometers less than Nigeria, which many people refer to be a very big country. And of course, if you check and search and research on the net right now as I'm speaking to you, the biggest countries in Africa, Namibia will be in the top 10. So how the hell does anybody come here giving the impression that this country by landmass is a small country? No, no, no. And you know what? It's a hoax. Namibians themselves say the same thing, that it's a small country. Instead of being specific, many a times when Namibians say Namibia is a small country, which is what people tend to take out, what they actually mean is that the population is small. So why don't you just say Namibia has a small population, that Namibia has small number of people, whatever small means, but the country, people understand it most times from the perspective of landmass, and this country ain't in any way small. In fact, from the landmass, Namibia's low population is it's just a little bit of people in a massive country. When I say country, I'm talking about landmass. The geographical size. Big, not small. That's hoax number one busted. It's a hoax. It's looking at us all in the face. We see it every day, but we still keep calling this country a small country. Hoax number two. Still in Namibia, it is still discussed when we talk about gender that men are the problem to women's access to land. The last time I checked, that may be in another country. In fact, it is an arguable fact. In Namibia, there is stronger gender equality in Namibia than in most other places, including in terms of empowerment through land access, ownership. It is also a fact that women's lack of access to land is not always a consequence of patriarchy. Which ones are we talking about? And by the way, I'm still talking about Namibia. I said primarily. The land in the country under European colonization and whatever, it's based on, it was taken away. I can leave Europeans to describe their patriarchy and describe whether it was a man or a woman that took it away. There have been queens and princesses all over there. But within the country, you ask yourself, how many women support patriarchal rules and engage in attitudes and actions that impede or deny fellow women access to land? The girlfriends versus girlfriends, when they are fighting for land, mothers, there's a connection that Namibia is such that, at least to a level not like many other countries, men do not just sit around and take away land from women. There are still traditional areas like the Kavango region where traditions have issues like that, to an extent contribute, but in general, by law, it's equal in terms of opportunity. But in terms of outcome, that may change for various reasons. First, politically empowered women have farms in Namibia. But politically empowered women also have land in Nigeria. Educated women or women with jobs tend to have access to land or land resources as much as men with jobs. women that are educated, women that are married, women that are single, they all have different experiences to the access to land, and it is not completely determined by men. We can say now it's a country where women run the show. So it is inaccurate to always generalize that men are the problem to women's access, at least in Namibia. In fact, women are empowered, and we can get away from that. If men are the problem, there is no research that can actually point strongly to it. But there's research to show that there's disparity. Disparity in the sense that a highly empowered woman politically or educationally would have more access to it than a less educated man. The same way, the same highly empowered woman would have more access to it than the less educated woman. And the same applies to men. Then, again, I mentioned this, Professor Job Amapanda in the parliament in Namibia once asked the question, why women cannot be headsmen in our communities.
But no one is talking about women. Why don't you have women in headmen in your same policy? Women as no, she said women in parliament. So all these conversations, as uncomfortable as it is, because we know very well when people are talking about women, they are not talking about necessarily my aunties who's unemployed and unemployable and disabled at the village. They are talking about perfumed women, the one that must go to the
honorable member, that one is a stereotyping of females.
Perfumed women is a
in a manner that is unacceptable. It's unparliamentary.
No, we must have this conversation.
Honorable member,
the gist of it, Speaker.
I rule that one out, honorable member. You can not continue to characterize women as perfumed women.
Speaker, I'm explaining as uncomfortable as it is.
I heard you, but I have come to the conclusion.
Means. You didn't ask me what it means.
No,
what it means.
Not, you explained it.
Perfume
but
women
it's
means
unacceptable. It's unacceptable to characterize women in that way.
Okay, Speaker.
Yeah.
The problem that we have of women. So that women fighting for position to be CEO, to be minister, to be president, and they are not concerned about our women there in the informal settlement who have been chased by city police there. It's all about becoming CEOs and becoming ministers. You know, these things of, no, we can't have a situation, women must not hijack
Honorable,
the gender agenda. So we must talk about also, we are tired of women.
Point of order,
women everywhere.
Point of order. Who is making the point of order? No one.
And it was treated like it was like a question of insult to women. Well, if it is the men that has to take up the job of being headsmen in most parts of the villages to cater for the land, then it is simply natural that men might find themselves having easier access to land. But that's a different scenario altogether. But in general, not in this country, it's still a hoax that men are the problem to women's access to land. Hoax number 3 is that Namibia is a country with full freedom when it comes to land access. You see the contradiction? When it comes to the freedom to land, people outside Namibia have gained this impression that it's a free place. Freedom, a place, you know, freedom in terms of gay rights, freedom in many aspects where other countries in Africa struggle. And the Namibian is also beginning to believe it when it comes to freedom in land access. In fact, this is the biggest land hoax in Namibia, because a substantial size of Namibia's land is nationalized. Land nationalization implies eliminating private ownership of land, private full ownership of land, and transferring the land to state ownership. So as we are speaking, 36 to 42% of land in Namibia is designated as communal land, and this means that it operates in a situation where the government holds the land on behalf of the people and controls the land through the means of chiefs or local authorities, land boards, based on a law that we call the Communal Land Act. Meaning that if the people own land and do not have direct control of the land, and someone else has to hold it for them to control the land, then it's nationalization. It is not freedom of full ownership of land. And so the idea that Namibia is a freeholding country is great when you talk about freehold, commercial freehold, which are predominantly land held by the European settlers and emerging native elites of the country. So it is a misnomer, it is a hoax. There is nationalization in Namibia because there is state control of land to an extent, a substantial, size of the country, which I would put between 36 to 42% of the land. Just saying, because we don't know how land is being leased and sold and all that, so yeah. And this part of the land, actually, it is designated as land not to be sold, so which means it's always in the control of the state. Hoax number 4. This one is that Namibia prohibits dual nationality, dual citizenship. I hear this all the time from Namibians, that the country does not allow dual citizenship. Oh, give me a break. This is another big hoax. And by the way, you'll be asking me, what has dual citizenship got to do with land? Oh, plenty. It's got many things to do with land, because when we talk about absentee landlords, people who hold the land as Namibians but then disappear to Europe and live as Europeans, what are we talking about? It's a consequence of dual citizenship. It allows you to do certain things. Fish rods. Namibia, you hear about the fish rod. Probably able to hold on to those guys because not many of them, they cannot keep dual citizenship. But it's a hoax that dual citizenship does not exist. It is true, by the way, that the Namibian Citizenship Act of 1990, if you go to section 26, it prohibits dual citizenship. However, the court has held that section 26 may not be constitutionally applied to Namibian citizens by birth or descent. Refer back, by the way, sorry, I have to cut myself short there. If you refer to the case of Theoro versus Minister of Home Affairs of 2008, as well as the case of Leroux versus Minister of Home Affairs and Immigration and Others of 2011, you would see that according to, and again, according to information actually posted on the official website of the Nigerian Embassy in Washington, D.C., it says that upon the proper interpretation of the Namibian constitution as seen in the two cases that I just mentioned. You're going to hear it. I'm just trying to break it down, because it's going down to the point where certain people in Namibia are allowed to have dual citizenship while others are not. So, upon proper interpretation of these cases, it is clear that dual citizenship is allowed in two circumstances. One, Namibian citizens who are citizens only by birth or descent may hold dual citizenship if the laws of other countries allow such dual citizenship. So the implication of this is that a section of privileged Namibians who are citizens by birth or descent, remember, birth or descent, but hold citizenship from places like South Africa, Australia, and that's where you get plenty of them, and countries from Europe or North America, like Germany, they can hold dual citizenship if their countries allow for that. Does that explain to you why some of us hold German passports, South African passports, plenty, and so on and so forth? And because of that, they are able to have access, ownership to land, and be absentee landlords. I'm not saying that's, the only case where it applies, but this is one area where it is a hot debate when it comes to land affairs. But on the contrary, the normal Namibian is made to believe that they must be rooted squarely in Namibia to have legitimate access to the Namibian land. It's a hoax. Please think about that. Finally, I said there's going to be 5 of them. Finally, my hoax number 5 is that Namibians are now empowered with land ownership because apartheid era situations are over. Oh, please, just stop. You all should stop that propagating all this about how land ownership is now okay because apartheid era situations are over. Well, apartheid era situations, I can tell you, they did not change after independence, they did not change the apartheid era land ownership structure. No. That's why few still own more of the land. And the only one that some have has been nationalized by the state. Of course, the state needs land too, and they need somehow to have access to land. Because the last time I checked, in Windhoek, the central district of Windhoek, I need to be challenged. I don't think there are up to 3 or more than 3 native Namibian citizens that own land there. And meanwhile, most of the land owned there are by absentee landlords. So under such circumstances, one cannot clearly say that Namibians are now empowered with land ownership because of apartheid era situations that we have dissolved. No. There are even some laws still in place, not laws for people to have to be given passes to pass from one place to the other, no. But in terms of ownership, there's spatial segregation, of course, caused by financial situations. We've not been able to fully recover, but it is good to know that progress has been made, and this progress encourages for more progress. But it is also good to get away from that hoax that the situation has been solved. So, those are the 5 hoaxes. I know I gave you one bonus hoax when I started, but these are the 5 main hoaxes about land ownership in Namibia. Thank you. I'd just like to say, just to put a disclaimer, whatever you heard that you didn't like, please keep it to yourself and no offense. And whatever you heard that you like, please spread it. There is no statement made here that was made against any particular person. As an academic, I look at what is in front of me and I try to put it out there. But you know, when you write is different from when you talk. So please accept me, but reject what you want to reject, and accept me and accept what you want to accept. Thanks very much. I appreciate everyone, and I would like to call all of you now to please tap down there and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. And if you have subscribed, please do call on someone, a friend, someone in your group, your study group, your work group, a family member. Just ask someone to subscribe. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. And bye.